So this is our official second Facebook Live Q&A.
Yeah,
Um,
number two.
my name is Lori Groh, co-owner at Shoreside Therapies, and this is Garrett
I'm
Quill.
I'm Garrett Wilk. I'm a therapist at Shoreside Therapies.
Yeah, so today we wanted to talk a little bit about how COVID has been impacting mental health recently. Obviously, we talked a few weeks ago, talked a little bit about some of the things you've been seeing in your practice. But what are some of the things that are coming out in the last month? Some things, some issues that you might have been seeing?
Yeah, so I've definitely seen, I don't know about you, but I've seen more people with like depression, just anxiety. I mean, I think the anxiety about COVID has kind of been going on the whole time, but as numbers go up and down, I think people have been more anxious. I've seen people with OCD who may have already had OCD, but it was pretty manageable. I've seen that get a lot worse, which we'll talk about later. People with substance use, that's definitely gotten worse too. A lot of people sort of drinking to manage anxiety and other things. And then social anxiety too. I mean, people that were already maybe struggling to socialize, getting less and less of that socialization that they really need to get better, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the
Yeah.
social isolation does not help for that, for sure, where it makes every interaction a little bit more difficult and challenging. And then added to this, to the social anxiety piece is that, we talked about this a little bit last time, but people don't really know, how to interact and, what's going to be okay, what's going to be not okay. Do you,
Yeah.
do you do the little elbow bump, or do we
Yeah.
just not even anymore? So like what might have been uncomfortable for a lot of people, I know a lot of people just are awkward at that first meeting of someone, or even if it's a friend you haven't seen in a while, what do, right? So I would imagine at this point people are very uncomfortable and awkward and nervous, about
Yeah.
some of those, even with
Yeah.
even with family that comes
Yeah,
up.
and it's always changing what people are comfortable with. And then, people are getting used to wearing masks and like when do you wear a mask and when do you not.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is tricky to navigate. And it's hard for people who are already maybe struggling in those situations to navigate that. Or if someone already has a lot of anxiety or a lot of fear about COVID or has OCD about contamination, those whole situations just get much, much harder where a lot of people, I think, just avoid it.
Right, right. So is there anything, before we move on, is there anything, any suggestion, any tips you might have for somebody that's maybe struggling with that, with the social anxiety piece right now?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think within reason, I think for people to like use this as an excuse to avoid further. I mean, that's oftentimes what people with social anxiety sort of end up doing is avoiding, which
Hmm.
makes their social anxiety worse. So being mindful about like making sure that if you're deciding to stay home, is it really because that's the safest thing to do and that's sort of the sort of conscientious, respectful, prudent thing to do, or is it because I feel anxious about going out? And so kind of anxiety related to social anxiety. So sort of gauging what's your rationale for what you're doing, and also, making sure not to avoid things that, may be, reasonably safe, like being outside with a friend, or wearing a mask, things that think, if you're socially distanced and taking all the precautions, that you're not avoiding that because you need to be around people. You
Right,
need to challenge some of those social fears.
right. So it does help to sort of, talk with someone, and figure out, hey, is this something that I'm doing because I'm trying to be very conscientious of my health and other people's health? Or am I maybe using that so that I don't have to push myself in that area? Which is
Yeah.
understandable. It's a hard thing to push, right? It's a
Mm,
hard thing to push right now. But in general, it's a hard thing when you're feeling extremely anxious about something to say, I'm gonna go through, and hang out with somebody. I'm gonna go ahead and do it.
yeah.
So yeah, so kind of figuring that out first helps.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think, and talking to someone usually, I think you're right. That's helpful to like help you to gauge what's going on for you.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's hard to do that introspective work.
I think so too. I think we're really good at using mind tricks, and that can be helpful. Can be helpful in times and not helpful in times, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
yeah. All right, so let's switch gears a little bit. We're talking about talking to someone, right? And when is it time to maybe talk to a therapist? When is it time to go ahead and make that appointment? And maybe you could give us some red flags, some ideas of
Yeah,
what somebody could look for to make the decision if they're feeling some depression, if they're feeling some anxiety, they're feeling having some OCD symptoms. What are some red flags? How would somebody know, okay, today is a day I got to call and make an appointment?
yeah, yeah, definitely. So, I think there's some people, are already have existing mental health that's maybe getting worse from this, and some people this is the first time they've ever struggled with their mental health. So, I think you're looking for like big reactions or overreactions to scenarios, right? Like, do you look back and say like, wow, I can't believe I responded that way, or what just happened? Why did I do that? Um, you're looking, if you're more emotionally sensitive to things, if you're really struggling to kind of keep up with the day to day, some people are feeling more fatigue. If you're drinking more or, using something else to try to cope, it's unhealthy. I think, in terms of like depression, you'd be looking at like chronic sadness, you're looking at feeling hopeless, maybe even suicidal thoughts, and so if you're having suicidal thoughts, you definitely want to be reaching out. You need to be reaching out and talking to someone, letting someone know about that. Um, I think, so with depression, it could also be just struggle day to day, low energy, lethargic, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep, that low energy, right? That energy where it doesn't, where
Might
it
be low
feels like
stress
everything
related.
is a lot, right? That feeling of taking a shower might feel like a lot. You might be doing it,
Yeah,
but that the thought of it is sort of exhausting, right?
yeah,
That sort of thing.
yeah, like barely getting by. Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. I think anxiety is sort of a trickier one because I think everyone has heightened anxiety with this. But I think, what you're looking for too is, long sustained, you're consistently, significantly anxious, having more like heart palpitations, you have excessive worry that's really difficult to control or stop. Um, your worry isn't really that rational. Like later on, if you look at it, you're like, okay, maybe I didn't need to worry that much about that, or why did I spend the last 3 days so anxious or worried about that? Um,
Yeah.
or having sleep issues, that's a big one with anxiety too. Um, and then, I think OCD is probably one of the big ones. I have quite a few people I see with OCD, and I feel like people that had lower level OCD that was maybe really manageable or just barely impacting their life. I feel like a lot of the folks that I've seen have really seen that get a lot worse. Because, of course, especially if they struggle with contamination, this whole pandemic is playing right into their greatest fears.
Right.
um, yeah, so OCD would be like a pattern of, so you're having regular and consistent unwanted or intrusive thoughts, and then you also, that would be the obsession, and then you have a compulsion, which is like a pattern of behaviors that are repetitive, that is designed to try to alleviate the anxiety related to the obsession. And usually people are spending, at least an hour a day doing those behaviors. And
Mm.
otherwise, scrupulosity, which can be religious themes. They could have thoughts about harming other people or fears that they might harm other people, straightening organization, things like that. But, I think that's a big one right now. A lot of people with OCD are really struggling, or maybe they had their OCD in a good spot and now it's just sort of resurged.
Right, right. And so that key right there would be maybe the amount of time someone spent on it, and maybe how
Yeah,
distracting it could be. Um,
right,
okay. Yeah,
right.
'cause
There,
that can be hard. That can be hard because some things kind of seem like they're manageable with OCD. You can get it into a sort of a manageable space or feels manageable, especially if things aren't being challenged, which again, that might be in the spot that we're at. maybe some of that's not being as challenged as much because there is the social isolation piece, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think, for people with OCD, they may end up having thoughts like, if they just wash their hands, like they may feel like, oh, maybe I'll just wash them again to make that, it'll make me feel a little more safe. Or, maybe I better wipe down my kitchen, another time. Or, so they're going, the next step may beyond what is a reasonable, like step to take with COVID, which, so it's of course really hard to gauge. Certain people find different things reasonable, but this is probably really, really causing them a lot of anxiety, really occupying their thoughts significantly.
Right. And so this leads me to my last and final question, because we are, believe it or not, this goes by so quick. We're already at 15 minutes here. So my last question is, I'm very excited to hear that you got a anxiety and OCD group that you're doing. So maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So obviously it's probably not a great idea for a group to meet in person right now. So we're going to do it virtually, but it feels like there's a lot of need for people who are struggling with, specifically OCD right now. That's pretty difficult, but also, social anxiety or any other anxiety. And so I'm looking, at this group that will help people to understand what's going on for them, learning some skills to be able to handle it. You're getting support in the group, learning, the best ways to cope with that and to treat it. And I find group is like a really effective way to do that. People feel like, oftentimes people feel pretty lonely with mental health. Like maybe they're the only one going through what they're going through. So group, I think, can be an amazing way for people to realize like, oh, like other people are going through this too. And to get a lot of that support and to get, good treatment in a more cost-effective way.
Yeah. I think that is a great point about the group, of like that idea of feeling alone, right? And that you might be the only one experiencing this. And especially if you're not talking to other people about it, which a lot of times I think isn't necessarily what people want to do, because they're scared people aren't going to understand it. It's such a great avenue to be around, some people that really know exactly what you're going through for the most part, right? Everybody has different experiences, but they can say, oh yeah, I felt like that once. And I know for a lot of my clients, when they have that connection with somebody, when they feel like, oh, somebody else has experienced this, it just automatically, you can see in their whole physical being, like this sort of feeling of, okay, everyone gets it, and how powerful that is.
Yeah, it's really powerful. Yeah, it's amazing to just feel like, okay, this person gets it. I don't have to try to explain this. I don't, they're going to like understand it maybe in a way that most people won't. So
yeah. And there's that other aspect, right? What you mentioned is that other people have other ideas or tips, or, hey, this worked really well for me, or even calling you out, here and there group of, maybe you're doing this right now, which can be a really, really positive thing, especially when all of these people, they are there for the same thing. They're there to look out for your best interest, right? And they're trying to help and support, which might not be always true with other people in your circle, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, I think groups are a great way to do it. I'm really excited to run this group. So
yeah, that's going to be great. All right, so Garrett, we should end. You want to let people know your email and how you can be reached?
Yeah. So my email is gwilk9@gmail.com. And then my phone number, feel free to text or call. My phone number is 715-309-3386.
Awesome. All right. If I was a little bit more tech savvy, that would be popping up on the screen right now.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Like in bold. Like
maybe next. Yeah, maybe next time.
Yeah. I'm excited for that. Like the infomercial.
I know. That'd be great, right?
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Garrett. And we'll do another one of these soon.
Sounds good. Thanks.
All right. Yeah. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, you too. Bye.